Robbie, Kellman, Baxter. Welcome to Sell Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
I am really thrilled to talk to you. I was on stage at a conference talking to a group of entrepreneurs literally 2 weeks ago. We were talking about recurring revenue and subscription models, and I was like blathering on about how important it is to the value of your company. And I'm like, all right, go for it. Everybody in the audience, raise your hand if you're in an industry that you don't think you can create recurring revenue in. And we'll riff together. And I'm like in front of 200 people and feeling all proud of myself. And some guy in the back of the room says, yeah, okay, well, I own a hotel franchise. And I'm like, all of a sudden completely freeze on stage, and I can't think of any subscription model. So I'm hoping today we can crack open this idea that the subscription model is only applicable to SaaS companies, software as a service companies. I want our listeners, they run dental practices and car dealerships and architectural firms and, lawn care firms. And I really want to open their minds to the idea that even they can create recurring revenue. So riff with me. Let's start off talking about some industries, some companies that are doing recurring revenue in industries that you wouldn't ordinarily think of them.
Yeah, well, I want to start with that initial assumption about SaaS, software as a service, because when I started talking about membership and subscriptions and the value of recurring revenue and what I call a forever transaction, which is, when your customers choose you first and kind of stop thinking like a customer, start thinking like a member. I've been a product manager in software companies, and they thought this was a terrible idea. They said, it doesn't work for us. You don't understand. In B2B software, it's way too complicated. And the only company that was really doing it in a credible way at that time, this is 25 years ago, was Salesforce, right?
Right.
And it was, they were saying the same thing. I think that some of your audience members are saying, it doesn't work in software. It works with newspapers. It works with gyms, but it doesn't work for me. And it's really been my life's work to try to show organizations that almost any business that wants to have a long-term relationship with their customers and that has value that justifies an ongoing relationship with their customers can be a subscription business. But here's the steps that I would take, right? And because that used to be the same thing as you. I'm writing the book, I'm trying to think, what are the cases where it doesn't work? And what I came to is, if you're never going to see the customer again, or if the customer doesn't have a choice, then you don't really need subscriptions. So never going to see them again. You only sell, caskets, or you only sell wedding dress. I used to joke, you don't want to have a subscription to a wedding dress company, right? You only want to do it once. Yeah. And then the other thing is, if you have a patent, right? If I have the medicine that keeps you alive, it doesn't matter if I'm a jerk. It doesn't matter if I build a relationship. It doesn't matter how I charge you. You're gonna keep paying. Last gas for 100 miles. They don't have to have clean bathrooms, right? You're gonna buy your gas there. You're not gonna come back. But for anybody that's listening that has relationships with customers, there is room for subscription. And the way to do it is to take a step back and say, what is the outcome, the ongoing outcome, the ongoing problem that I'm solving for this customer, or the ongoing goal I'm helping them achieve? Whether that's, I want to be healthy, I want to have a beautiful lawn, I want my yard to look great, I want to enjoy my home, I want to be healthy, any of these kinds of ongoing goals. And then you say, what would it look like if I did everything I could to maximize the likelihood of solving that problem on an ongoing basis? And that's where you start to get the ideas of, oh, that's what my subscription is. It's taking the problem away from the customer.
On an ongoing basis. It sounds like you need a problem that by its definition recurs. It has to have something perennially problematic about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in some cases, you have to change what the problem is you're solving. So for example, in the silly wedding dress question or, issue, right? If you have a wedding dress shop, you might say the problem of not having a wedding dress for a wedding dress occasion probably doesn't come up too often for most of us, hopefully. But the problem of always looking great for a special occasion, that comes up pretty often, right? Especially, when you think special occasion is a work meeting, high stakes work meeting, a fun party, a religious event, whatever. Then you get into the rent the runway model. right? Where it's like, there's always a special occasion. So it's changing. What is the real problem? Is it, I need a wedding dress, or is it, there are these high stakes events where I need to look good? Is it, I need to remodel my house, or is it, I always want my house to look its best, current? I don't see things. I'm not, visually, aesthetically strong. And then you start to say, oh, that's the problem. It's make my house always look nice. I'm working a lot with healthcare right now. Most of healthcare is designed to fix you when you're broken, right? Fix the broken
100%.
problem. But most of us don't want that. We're like, I don't want to break in the first place. I want to maximize my happy, healthy minutes. And you can see how if your hospital, if your doctor was focused on you never coming in, you might be willing to spend a lot to just be healthy all the time.
So give me an example from healthcare that, like, I'm thinking of, like I go to a I'll give you a few places that I go to regularly. I go to a chiropractor, I go to a dentist, I go to an optometrist. Like, there's a few kind of practitioners I see on a semi-regular basis. Like, how would they create recurring revenue models?
Well, so first of all, in some cases, they almost have that in a de facto way, right? They have a relationship. They tell you to come every 6 months. In my case, because the Kellmans are big plaque producers, apparently. So we come we come every 4 months. We have like we have a frequent customer. I have a special door that I go in at my dentist because I'm a VIP patient. But you recognize people like that. You offer them, do you want the full solution? If you know that most people end up buying a certain package over time, buying certain products over time, you bundle them early on and you say, this is probably going to solve the problem most fully. You go to the chiropractor because something happened, right? We don't usually go to the chiropractor in a preventative way. We go to fix something that's broken, right? So they say, look, if you don't want this to happen again, here's 3 things you can do, right? You can take a stretching class, you can come see me for a regular adjustment, and I don't know, you can take these vitamins or, eat this way. And then they start to put that together for you and say, my goal is to optimize for your health. And so I'm putting together the services in a way that makes sense for you. There's
interesting. So in the chiropractic example, you might offer something that says, like, I'm going to make this up, for $100 a month,
yep.
You can come in as regularly as you want to. Like, you
could do that. You could say you can come in as regularly as you want to. You could say, we have, I'm making this up. I don't see chiropractors, so this might not be the best example, but you can, on Thursdays, we have other people that have health issues and they get together and talk to each other. We have a community, because a lot of times if you have an ongoing problem or an ongoing goal, it's just as helpful to meet other people dealing with the same problem, because they might have other tips for you that the one specialist doesn't have, right? So you might go to take your toddler for their checkup, but while you're in the waiting room with other parents and caregivers, you might have a really interesting discussion about where to get a good stroller, which your doctor probably doesn't know. And so it's really kind of aligning around what is the ongoing problem, and then how can I layer in value? And you can layer in value through the product itself, through discounts on, the service, through additional services, through some kind of, maintenance type of relationship. Because often people come in for the big event, the big transactions, but there's actually kind of ongoing maintenance. One company I worked with, Haggerty Insurance, which is insurance for classic cars, they've built a whole business around what do you do once you have the car? Right? You enjoy it, right? Where do you go? You go to car shows, you figure out car vacations, you hang out with other car fans and talk about your cars, you maintain cars, you go on a hunt for a really old piece, that you need to, I don't know, you can see this is not also my area of expertise, but the piece you need to fix the car to make it the way it once was. They offer all of those features in their driver's club, right? In addition to the, you have the insurance, but it's the club. They said, people don't buy a car. They don't buy insurance to buy insurance. They buy insurance because they want to have a really good time with their car, with their classic car. And so what else can we do for them? What is getting in their way?
And why would it be, okay, so if you've got a skeptical person hearing this and they're saying, okay, why on earth is this insurance company creating a driver's club? It's got to be a pittance of revenue relative to their premiums they get on insuring these fancy cars. like, why would I bother? Why would I just stick with my knitting and focus on selling premiums?
Well, so first of all, this company noticed that their customers were already referring to themselves as being members. They were already coming to the Hagerty experts, calling the Hagerty hotline and saying, hey, I heard there was this, car show. Should I go? Would I look stupid? Am I the kind of person that should go? And asking for advice that really went well beyond what an insurance company would provide. And their excitement when they saw the Hagerty brand went well beyond, what most of us feel when we see our, Geico or, Liberty Mutual or whatever our provider is. And they said, there is something more here. And what it does for them is there's revenue, right? It costs something to be a member. One of the benefits is it brings them back more often because you don't really think about insurance until you have a problem. So people think of it as a commodity and then they become very price sensitive. So this is a way to build a real relationship, to demonstrate your trustworthiness in other ways. If you have kind of a product that doesn't get used very often except in an emergency, it's opened the door to acquisition. So, this particular company has ended up acquiring car shows and car events. And I think they even have like a rental business where you can rent a classic car when you're on vacation. And so it's given them a new lens to look at expansion. I think so many businesses are so laser focused on the product or service that they do that they forget to look at it like, how does that fit in the customer's journey of what they're trying to accomplish? So I might be, a lawn expert, and that's great if you have really, really deep problems with your lawn, but most people just want their yard to look nice, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you say, well, you want your yard to look nice, what if they solved the whole problem? What if they said, I'm going to swing by once a week and I'm going to just make things look nice, and up to a certain amount, all of these things are included, so you don't get nickeled and dimed. And above that, I'll let you know what I recommend, but I see my job as maximizing the beauty and the usability of your yard, right?
As opposed to just being another lawn care
person, because I don't really want a lawn care person. When I go in to buy a white blouse for a speech that I'm giving, right? I'm not a huge shopper. I don't like to shop. It's not fun for me. I'm there because I want to look professional for my work, which is important to me. And if they knew that, they'd stop trying to say, these are all the latest things. Do you want to see them? And they'd start saying, you have a speech? Do you have makeup that is, that works with, strong lighting? Do you want to get your, I can tell you where to get your hair done that will, in this, town where you're speaking and you ran out to get a shirt because you stained your other one. It's the mindset. It starts with the mindset. And then once you start talking to people about what their real problems are, all of these other opportunities for value come up. And those are the things that you can bundle. But you can always start with advice. Almost always. You can almost always start with advice, maintenance, a higher level of service, and community. Those are often easy ways. And then the other one that people start with all the time, but I recommend you don't stick with it, is discount for volume, discount for commitment, right? If you pay as you go, it's $100 a week. If you buy it for the whole year, it's $4,500, right? You can do the math.
Right. So that's kind of bribing them to stay, but your sweet spot or your recommendation is go beyond just kind of bribing people and actually think of it as an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, because the discount, like I think about acquisition benefits and then I think about retention benefits. A lower price can be a great acquisition benefit, but it doesn't change you from a commodity into a trusted relationship. So right away, you've got to offer something more. And a lot of people will say things, for example, about their lawn people or about their, contractors. I hired them because the price was right. But I keep them on. I don't even care what they charge me anymore because I trust them, because they've helped me out, because they've shown me things I didn't see, because they've helped me see around corners, because they've connected me with vendors that are even outside of their area. So I know they have my best interest at heart.
You raise Hagerty and they're involved in the classic car business, which is kind of a sexy business. I know there's another famous example of the Harley Owners Club, with Harley Davidson owners, and they get special access to Harley stuff and Harley rides. And so there's this sort of cool brand where you want to have an affinity with a cool brand. And so a membership to a cool brand or having an affinity with an ongoing relationship with a cool brand kind of makes a whole bunch of sense. I kind of get that. Where, however, I get some more pushback is in industries that are not sexy.
Yeah.
Like, I supply a widget to a company that supplies a bigger widget that sells to a giant manufacturing company. Like, how am I supposed to buy into this idea of recurring revenue when I don't have some sexy brand people want to have affinity to?
Yeah. One man's boring is another man's sexy, right? I mean, it's like,
you said it here first.
And so if your career is based on the quality of the widgets you buy and how well they work with the products you make and how happy that makes the clients that you serve, you're going to care a lot about the relationship you have with your widget provider. So I think one of the things that these owners might not be thinking about is who is their customer and what is that customer's goal? And in the B2B world, there's a piece of that which is about I, as a person that works in this company, have goals. So for example, Salesforce, which we kind of opened with, one of the things they did very early on is they created a community for Salesforce administrators, right? Super boring, right? A bunch of people who like manage,
you and I, yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it seems, but if that's your job, what do you want? You want to get the next new good job. You want to get a good review. You want to get out the door at 5:00. You don't want to be, caught off guard by something that your boss asks you for. You want to be impressive at meetings. Those are very sexy ideas to somebody who is using that software every day. And so when you start to think about what can I do for that person to help them achieve their ongoing goals, which is about being well regarded, getting a good review, being promoted, having free time, being efficient, suddenly that widget maker can start to think of all the other things they can do to help that person.
Really well said. I love the Salesforce example because you're right. There's nothing inherently interesting necessarily about CRM software.
No one has a Salesforce tattoo, right?
Yeah,
that I know of.
I think Benioff probably has a Salesforce somewhere, but I think you're right. I think there's this idea that among the people whose job it is to be the very best, in this case, Salesforce administrator, they do have an affinity for that relationship. They need to look smart and so forth. It's interesting. One of the things I find with recurring revenue models and subscription models is that people get mixed up between reoccurring revenue and recurring revenue. And to some people, they just said, well, you just said the same thing. They're identical. Reoccurring revenue is like a rash. You don't know when you're going to have that rash reoccur, but it does come back from time to time. Whereas recurring revenue is on a predictable cadence. Do you find customers getting confused by these two things? And how do you coach them through that confusion?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of them is that, every time someone walks out the door, this could be their last time, the incentive is to upsell them and to not worry about the integrity of the relationship. And so it really does affect the culture of the organization. If your business is optimized around recurring revenue, everybody in the organization is optimizing around, solving the ongoing problem, knowing that there's going to be a next time, knowing that they have your home phone number. It really changes the vibe of the place. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and executives don't think about this. In their mind, they're like, okay, we used to sell, we're talking about lawn care, right? Lawn care once a week, or we used to sell hotel rooms, but now we're going to bundle it and you get, 2 nights of hotel a month, right? Let's just even say that that's relevant or anybody would want that. But, you come with this package, but you don't change your behavior, right? And they come in and it's still $70 for, I just was staying at a hotel where it was $70 for the valet that was required because there was no self-park. But what they do well, or what they're moving toward, is an experience for frequent members, right? Where you're not nickeled and dimed, where they anticipate what's going to make your experience better. And even thinking about things like recognizing you when you show up and not maximizing the revenue from that single visit, but rather, really building for that long-term relationship. And I think by doing that, things as simple as compensating people on recurring visits or, loyalty, it changes how everybody from the front desk to the valets to everybody else.
It sounds like you're advocating this really is much more than a pricing strategy. This kind of goes through the entire organization, right through the way you train your employees how to deal with customers. Because, the old school transactional business model was, like upsell, get the premium. They bought the widget, make sure they bought the, they buy the, whatever, the insurance with the widget to ensure that you maximize their, cost per or revenue per visitor, or, that kind of idea. And what I hear you advocating is as a much longer term view. I'll tell you, I had a really interesting experience, at least interesting for me. I got a chance to speak years ago now at I can't remember the name of the association. It was called like the American Car Wash Association.
Oh, I spoke there.
Did you really?
International Car Wash. I see. Yes.
Okay, so we both done the same gig. I wonder if we said the same stuff.
They had like a giant car wash set up in the middle of the trade show floor with all the soap and
that's hilarious.
Brushes.
In any event, I go to this car and they say, we want you to talk about subscription model and how it applies to car wash. And so I was sort of getting everybody revved up about this idea of, like you could turn your car wash from a transaction business into a subscription one by offering unlimited car washes. And you wouldn't believe the resistance I got in the room, right? Because they're like, no, but you don't understand. If we had unlimited, like everybody would come through every day. I mean, like we would go broke in all the hot water. And we couldn't do it. What would you say to someone who is hesitant to do this because they're seeing this all-you-can-eat business model as one that is unpredictable and that they couldn't possibly do because they'd be worried people would kind of use the service all the time? What's your rebuttal to someone like that?
Yeah. So I had the same, experience with the car wash folks. And the other thing that they said, this is like 5 years ago now, but the other thing that they said, they were so focused on shaving off 1 minute on the car wash time, right? Like, so instead of it taking 11 minutes, it only takes 10 and a half minutes and it's 8% cleaner. And I said to them, I'm like, nobody cares except you. What people really want is to not even have to show up at all and just have their car be clean, like have the car fairies come in the middle of the night and clean it. And that was really, I think, surprising to them. But what we learned, so a couple things that they learned, because now almost every car wash, they've changed their tune. Like all the car washes are now offering subscriptions. And there's a couple things they've learned. One of them is most people that have a car wash subscription go twice a month. So it's not crazy. The people who are crazy are, the few crazy folks out there in the world who love having a spotless car, but also Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, who are required to have a clean car. And so they've started to change the rules around those people and create different offerings for them. So they've kind of segmented them out. They also learned that there was a whole segment of people who subscribed, who only went once a month. So basically they're losing money on this. But what those people said is, I like having the card that I can swipe and I don't have to go to the cashier anymore, because they wanted a completely friction-free experience and they didn't even care how much it costs. So for every person that's going 4 or 5 times a month, there's a person who's paying for a subscription and only going once a month. But what I would say to these people, if you really are saying, I'd love to try subscription, but I'm afraid that an all you can eat, I can't walk back an all you can eat model. You want to test it. You want to really get clear on what I always have my clients do this, figure out what are the biggest things that can go wrong, and then figure out what are the ways we can mitigate those risks. So for example, if you think people are going to overuse it, right, you can either design it into your program right from the beginning, no Uber drivers allowed, that's probably not allowed, but something that is designed, or you can only come during these periods, or there's a maximum number. And you see a lot of new subscription offers have this fine print, you can't do that many, or you can't come during busiest hours. And then once you learn what the actual cadence is, how people actually use it, then you can be a lot bolder. So for example, the company Whoop, which has a wearable
I've seen them. I've never used them. Yeah, Whoop.
To track your health, right? And your recovery. They're big on your recovery time. So for elite athletes. So I obviously don't have one, but But my sister
Neither
does.
you nor I are elite athletes. We've just determined that is the kind of core idea of the podcast.
Yeah. So a lot of these biohackers have them, and they are so confident. They have such a clear understanding of how long someone's going to use this device, which is, the answer is, a long time, that they actually give away the watch with the subscription, with a 6-month commitment. So your first 6 months, you get a watch. And then from there on out, every time they upgrade the watch, you get the upgrade too. I believe that's still the case. But they had a lot of faith that offering the best experience to maximize the likelihood of somebody bouncing back in the best way from a big workout, that if they keep doing that, people will keep coming back. And so they aren't worried about losing people. In their case, they were worried, people are often worried, if I, like Peloton, if I give the hardware with the software, what if they never come back? What if I never get the money back? And so some of them do it like Peloton does, which is you pay a big amount for the hardware and then you also pay for the software. Some like Whoop that understand their model better, they just package the whole thing together. So you can do it in stages.
That's really cool. So the kind of best practice is do a test, observe the behavior, and then start to remove some of the restrictions, because the restrictions act like speed bumps, presumably. Oh, there's all this mouth type, there's terms and conditions. I'll never use it, and then they bolt. But if you remove some of that stuff based on behavior, i.e., 2 car washes a month, it reduces their concern.
Or you try it in a very small market. So if you have a chain of car washes, you might say, we're offering, this summer, we're offering unlimited car washes for 3 months. And you see what people do, and you have an out, right? At the end of the 3 months, you can decide you're never going to do it again, or you can double the price or whatever.
Yeah, I love your concept or your insight in the car wash folks saying that there's a segment of the market that, they care about the frictionless purchase. I had a chance to interview Sonyu Panda for the Automatic Customer about H. Bloom, the subscription-based flower company.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things he really described to me was the importance of segmentation. So he was like, the biggest mistake people make in creating recurring revenue models is they try to create some vanilla program for all their customers. And what he did when he looked at the people who buy flowers, he realized there were lots of people who buy flowers kind of transactionally, like weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, whatever. But then there are these 5-star hotel chains that want to have the bouquet of flowers on the reception table. And those are the folks who buy them on a recurring basis. That's who we're going to design the subscription model for. So it was this like segmentation is kind of almost like a prerequisite or a first step in the process. Have you seen some similar work in your work with clients that segmentation is kind of the first step?
You have to know who you're designing the subscription for. And there's a couple of ways that I think organizations will often do it. Sometimes a subscription is for your best customers, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case, with the flowers, it's it's the best customers, the ones who buy big bouquets, I imagine, every week. And they also have, and I'm guessing they also have very different, like some different needs. They probably want delivery. They might have custom requests. They might want to reuse their own vases, stuff like that. You optimize around them, right? And you really get into their head about what their problems are. And if that works, then you might offer a second subscription for a different group, right? But you're right. They start with, and a lot of organizations will say, let's take all the features we can offer, and then we'll have gold, silver, bronze, and we'll kind of randomly, put the least in bronze and then add some features for each level. And you're like, well, who's a gold person and how are they different than a bronze person? And the answer that you're looking for is a gold person is a hotel, and a silver person, it's not a person at all. It's a hotel. A silver person is, somebody who does flowers for every holiday occasion, and they always do it for Christmas and Mother's Day and New Year's and, family member birthdays. Sure. And so that's what their subscription looks like that. And then you can keep layering it in. It's sometimes also used for your lightest members as a way to bring them in. So, Porsche, the car company, they have a subscription called, used to be called Porsche Passport. And I think they call it Porsche Drive. And it's kind of access to a fleet of cars, and you can rotate through. So you can have, an SUV 1 month, and you can have a sports car coupe the next month. And it's turned out that is really popular with people who've never owned a Porsche before. And
isn't that interesting? It's almost like an on-ramp to
It's an on-ramp. It's
Isn't that interesting?
it's a big expense. I want to make sure I'm really a Porsche person.
Right.
But it's sort of interesting. You compare that. Volvo also has a subscription. Their subscription is designed for their core leasing customer, for their most popular model. I think it's a C model, C series. And it basically bundles all the things that a lease has, but in a simpler way. So it's, it covers maintenance, and it covers replacements while your car is in the shop, and it covers all of the, all the licensing and all the other details. And, you always have because basically that's where people are like, I always want a car. I always want it to be a Volvo. I always want it to work and be in the best shape, and I don't want it to be old. Right. So those are two vastly different subscription ideas from, two companies that you'd think would do the same thing, right? They're both kind of high-end car companies.
100%. NetJets has their 24-hour card, which is like that on-ramp you're describing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you never flown privately before. Well, here's an on-ramp to get you there, and they hook you in. And once you fly private, presumably you're never going back. So it's similar to the kind of Porsche idea. BMW kind of stepped in it a little bit when they started selling the heated seat subscription. and I know you've written about this and done some work around this. So for folks who don't know the BMW story, maybe you can, share what they did in offering their heated seat subscription, or was it heating steering wheel? I can't remember. No, I think it was heated
seats. And then I think it was some kind of fancy fog light.
Where did they get this wrong?
So first of all, lots of smart people at BMW, lots of research done. I think the mistake was their subscription was with a feature that people are used to getting included. And so people had a reaction to being asked to keep paying for a feature that they expect to be in the car. From BMW's perspective, like they do have, the same way that the new Coke debacle was made by some really smart people who had some very good arguments for why they did it that way. I think BMW said, we see a lot of aftermarket resale, right? So you buy a BMW, I buy a BMW. I live in California. I don't need heated seats. I sell my car to you. You live in Toronto. You would like heated seats.
I would like heated seats. Yeah.
So BMW is like, you can turn it on. Or even if I buy the BMW, but then I'm doing some work in Toronto in February and March, I can subscribe for 2 months and pay $20 or $30, and I got warm heat seats. Most of the time, I don't need it. So in their mind, it was a really flexible way to access a feature that some people love and some people never use. I think what I'm seeing with the car companies that are having better luck with subscription, it's on features that didn't exist before, options that didn't exist. So for example, I think it's Stellantis. They've been talking about a feature that not only tells you if your car is stolen, not only tells you where the car is, like we all have with our Apple, I forget what they call those little
the tiles or whatever.
The tiles, tile. But then you're like, okay, so my luggage is in Colombia. Now what do I do with that? They actually, part of the service is we'll retrieve it for you, right? We find it, we retrieve your car. If your car's been taken, if it's been stolen, we find it, we deal with the logistics, we bring it back. Because as a big company that sells cars, they're uniquely suited to do that in a way that I, as an individual owning just 1 or 2 cars, could never be good at. So the secret is, if you're going to put something on a subscription that used to be something that you can own, there needs to be good logic there, or you need to leave choice still there so people still have choice. But if it's something that's brand new that we've never had before, people are much more receptive to a subscription.
That's really interesting. What other mistakes can you help our listeners avoid? So let's say through the course of this conversation, we've got somebody who thought, subscriptions were just for software companies and media companies. And now they're like, you know what, well, maybe hearing Robbie, like maybe I could create something of ongoing value that people need. And they've kind of done their segmentation. So they think that there's this kind of like segment they can go after. What mistakes would you coach them to avoid that you see new people in this kind of space make all the time?
All the time. So the first thing is, don't just slap a subscription price on your products exactly the way they are, right? A subscription is a pricing. It's a pricing decision. Membership really involves a mindset where you're treating the customer like a member and you're committing to a long-term ongoing relationship with them. So that's the first thing. You have to know who you're having that relationship with, as we discussed. So, it's not for everybody. You probably want to start with a small and important segment. Usually it's your best customers. It's your lightest or newest customers, or it's a really weird segment that behaves differently than everybody else. But know who you're designing for. I think that's a second mistake. I think a lot of organizations, once they get their subscription model going, they over-index either on acquisition, so people sign up for it but then don't use it and then cancel, or they over-index on retention but don't bring in new customers. So you think about like the gym or the newspaper or the country club, where they're like, everybody that's a member loves us, but nobody wants to join. And the reason is usually that they've stopped innovating. They've stopped understanding what the market options are for a new customer. And so nobody who's considering options thinks their option is very good. But the people who are already members aren't looking for alternatives. And so it feels like they're loyal, but really it's just inertia.
Interesting. What other reasons do people stop subscribing or cancel their membership? Or, what do you see as the reason people churn?
So people often churn when a bad thing happens and it's not handled well. So I worked with a streaming company in Europe, and they were really angry at their retention team, but it turned out that most of the people who had canceled the day of or the day after a major soccer tournament that was supposed to be streaming on their channel. They'd lost the connection for 10 minutes. So you can think of all of these, people, these soccer fanatics, all, having all their friends over, and then, the game, doesn't come through. They all canceled. So that's the first thing, like a technical issue, a glitch that isn't handled properly. Another reason is people don't use it. So a leading indicator of churn or retention is usage. So you have a product, nobody's using it, they're going to cancel eventually. Maybe not today, but they will. So you want to, if somebody that was using, if somebody's coming to your gym 3 times a week and now they're not coming, they're probably going to cancel. So you need to figure out what's going on there.
Robbie, what about people who are like sleeping at the wheel? So let's imagine you've got a $9 a month subscription. Tucker Carlson's got his new, I read something about he's coming up with a new subscription. It's going to be $9 a month. Okay, fine. So you opt in, you're all hot and bothered about the fact that somebody's got a new subscription. It's $9. It's not a significant charge,
right?
But it goes on your card, and the first few months you use it avidly, and then you stop using it. Now you as the owner of that service can see their usage drop.
Yeah.
Right.
It happens all the time.
Yeah. And presumably the right thing to do is to get in there with your customer success people in the first couple of months and try to kind of stimulate usage and so forth. But let's imagine they have missed that window. And now that $9 a month charge is just kind of sitting there on that credit card. And they're worried that if they call that customer, they're going to wake the giant. And they're going to say, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten that I'd subscribe. You know what? Thanks for calling. Cancel.
Right.
What do you coach people when they've got a sleeping giant? Just leave them be until they realize?
There's a couple of things. So first of all, I'm a very kind of karma-oriented, positive person. So I can't imagine wanting to be running a business where the reason I make money is because people are getting no value and they keep meaning to cancel, but then they forget.
Sure. But if your kid's birthday party or your kid's dinner getting on the table is contingent on you running a company, you can have all the good charm in the world.
Here's the cold hard things. When people cancel, they'll often sue you. There's the FTC, all the Consumer Reports and the Customer Better Business Bureau. They're full of lawsuits for people hiding the cancel button, making it hard to cancel. They will never come back. So a lot of subscription businesses actually do very good business when people leave and come back. It's a huge part, for example, of Netflix business, right? People leave because, I'm really busy or I'm binging on HBO or whatever, and then they come back. And they don't refer you because they say, I used that. I never really used it. And then it was hard to cancel and it's a waste of money. So you don't engender goodwill. The other thing that, I don't want to I don't want to scare anybody, but the FTC right now has a massive lawsuit with Amazon Prime for making it hard to cancel. And they also, just announced Adobe, who's always been, considered a really good actor in this space, is being probed for penalizing people for canceling early. So there's a lot of legal issues, but I have seen in the long term that hiding the cancel button, that's what we'll just call it, but letting sleeping dogs lie, hiding the cancel button works great for the next 2, 3, 4 months. It works for your kid's birthday this year. Next year, you run out of people and you don't have any subscribers, because the other thing that I think is, to be noted is if you have a product that people aren't using and you're attracting people who use your product for a month and then stop using it, you don't have a real subscription business. And so you want to take that as a clue to adjust the business and improve the offering and not attract people who aren't going to stay.
To go back to the issue at hand, though, if you've got somebody who's a sleeping dog on your subscription list, they haven't logged in 3 years, like what would you counsel that owner to do to re-engage them at the same time, minimize their chance of churn?
Okay, so the first thing is, before you even reach out to them, you should have a pretty good idea of what happened. Did they truly forget that they even had the subscription? Would they be a good customer? Could you win them back? Did your product change a lot in the last 3 years and now it's way more relevant? Do you have something new to share? A lot of times companies can, you can look at your list of customers and you can guess why they're not there anymore. So the first thing is, do you actually have a story? Do you think they're likely to stay? Sometimes people have a subscription for reasons other than usage. So, for example, museums, right? I'm a member of a museum in Washington, D.C. I live in California. Why? Because I believe in what they're doing, right? I believe what they're doing. And they could call me and say, Mrs. Baxter, you've been subscribing for 4 years and you haven't been to the museum since, 2017. I'm not going to cancel. But they probably know that there are people like me. They're like, oh, a person in California that has a membership, only come once, So I think it's important to understand it. I think a second thing is, do you need to remedy it? Do you need to have a different offer? And, then it's up to you. Like you can you have no legal liability to tell them that they need to, to remind them. But if they cancel, there is a risk that they're going to be really angry. And so, you have to just know how your business responds to that and how big a risk it is. So I know, like, for example, a lot of newspapers, they actually keep raising the prices on their most loyal customers because they say, people, once you decide what newspaper you're reading, you're not going to cancel. So you and I could live next door to each other, be a very similar customer profile. You could be paying $5 for 6 months as an intro fee, going up to $10 a month. And I could be paying $85 a month for the same subscription. And I've talked to them and they're like, look, they made the same argument you did. They're like, look, we're making money from it. So that's the problem of that consumer that's not paying attention.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So get to know the reason they might be a sleeping dog before you call them, understand their usage pattern. And there may be underlying reasons that they are.
Yeah. So Netflix, it's interesting. Netflix has now said, if you haven't used your subscription in more than 11 months, they automatically cancel you.
Wow. Really?
They said we don't want sleeping dog revenue. We want revenue from people who use our product. They also introduced a lower priced subscription, which is interesting, which is their ad supported subscription, which is something when I was working with them 20 years ago, they said they would never do, but they've come around on advertising for, I think, good reasons. But they have always been, monthly only. They don't have an annual subscription that locks you in. And they always say, if you're not getting value, cancel. Every time they raise the price, they send out a letter. It says, we're raising the price. We think we give you great content. If you don't like it, you can cancel. Here's the button.
How often do you think people with a subscription model should be raising their price?
Not very often. I think, I think there's two options. One of them is that you raise it consistently so it becomes yet another habit. Oh, every year we raise it somewhere between 3 and 5% as a, to keep up with inflation or whatever. I think that works really well. When you raise your price, what happens is your subscribers, I always say subscriber is a person who was a consumer They take off their consumer hat where they're looking at alternatives. They put on a member hat. They relax back and they stop looking for alternatives and they stop paying attention to the bill. And, it's just part of how they live their life. It's almost a utility. When you raise the price, they put their consumer hat back on most of the time. And they're like, oh, wait, how much am I paying? How much are we using it? They'll often ask all the family members, are we still getting value for this? And that's a chance to lose them. So you don't want to do that unless you're either highly confident that they're going to still see that there's a lot of value, or you have a really good reason for raising the price. But you always lose people when you raise price. A bunch of people wake up and say, oh, I don't think that's worth it anymore.
It's such a great analogy, this kind of wearing the membership hat versus wearing the consumer hat, because when you are a member of something, you become sort of almost inoculated from competitive offers. You're like, no, exactly. I'm a member of this. And that makes you feel like you have a relationship, and that puts a bubble of security around your relationship with that customer if they consider themselves a member as opposed to a consumer. I think that's such an important sort of idea for our listeners to take away. One of the things that I also find interesting is the difference between a B2B subscription model and a B2C subscription model. And I think, from what I've experienced, B2C and B2B are different from lots of different angles. One, of course, is the contractual obligation with a B2C subscription model like a Netflix. Kind of I think the prevailing sort of model is cancel anytime, right? And here's this, cancel button, and we make that, obvious to you, versus a B2B subscription model where both sides are contractually agreeing to a set of, obligations to one another. We're going to supply you the service for this length of time, and in return, you're going to pay us this much per month for a certain period of time. How does your thinking about subscription models and membership models vary between a B2C model and a B2B model?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of things. I mean, you brought up an important one, which is, cancel anytime versus, you have a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract. Another one is usually the consumer, you have one buyer, and that buyer is usually the user, unless it's like a parent situation. But in B2B, you might have, I always think, you think about 3 different members. There's the company, there's the buyer, and then there's the people using the product or service. That's really what's been responsible for the rise, I think, of customer success as a discipline. If you move your B2B offer, your high-priced offer into a subscription, and you want to make sure that people are going to use the product and not leave. And we've all had experiences working places where, your boss buys something and you're supposed to use it and you just ignore them and don't use it and drag your feet. If you own the software outright, it's your problem. But if you're subscribing, it becomes the problem of the vendor. So I think that's something to think about, is if you're selling B2B, you want to think about, how do I build ongoing loyalty with the company, but also how do I build ongoing loyalty with the buyer, even if they leave the one company and go to another company, which happens all the time, right? How do I keep track of them? That's why these membership organizations become so valuable, like the Salesforce admin group, right? I would say that some Salesforce admins are more loyal to Salesforce than they are to their employer, right? First, I'm a Salesforce admin, and second, I work for Robbie's company, right? So you want to build loyalty with them, and then with the users themselves, because if they stop using the product, there's a pretty good likelihood that the next year, when they're looking at budgets and the contract comes up from renewal, they'll say, no one uses this anyway. We tried, it didn't work.
It's interesting. Going back to B2B versus B2C, what sort of churn rates would be ones that you would consider a red flag, and how do they differ between a B2C model and a B2B model? How high would my churn rate have to be before for you to say, you know what, you got to retool because that's too high?
So the companies that I work with are always retooling. They are always trying to improve retention rates. I would say actually that they kind of work through sort of the different issues. I always encourage them, manage retention, manage acquisition. And one of them is always out of whack. That's just, because you focus on one, it's hard to focus on both at the same time. I think when you're trying to determine what is your benchmark for kind of optimal retention, a lot of it is it depends on whether you have a true forever promise. So, for example, one time I was giving a talk, kind of like the talk that you opened with, where there's just a lot of business owners in the audience, and one of them had a business around potty training children, and was wondering why people were canceling their subscription after 6 months. And I'm like, well, as a mom of 3 kids, if my kid's not potty trained after 6 months of strenuous effort, if they are, then I don't need it anymore. And if they aren't, I'm gonna come back later because I got a bigger problem. And so the first thing is it really a forever promise? So funny story, I think it's funny anyway. The founders of LinkedIn, I'm sure everybody listening is a member of LinkedIn. Before they founded LinkedIn, they had a company called SocialNet, which was a dating site. They had the same vibe that they continue to have, which is very much about the long-term relationship with the customer, and they're in it for the long game and all the stuff that makes LinkedIn a good and successful company. But it was a dating site. So they were putting all this effort into building a trusted relationship with each member. And within 6 months, right, they're either finding their true love or they're getting booted out for being an unsavory character, right? And so they were like, the next time we start a company, we need a longer forever promise, right? So now it's your career, which is like, 50, 60, 70 years. And so, if you're paying $40 a month for the LinkedIn Learning and all the extra stuff, that is a great business. So I think if you're trying to figure out what retention should look like, you need to be really honest with yourself about how long a customer stays with you. And if they're leaving before that duration, and you can often tell this also by the reasons they leave, there's acceptable churn and there's unacceptable churn. And this is from the perspective of the owner, right? If I run a gym and the gym is in Menlo Park where I live, and somebody leaves and cancels their membership, and I say, why did you cancel? And they said, I moved to Toronto. Like, that's a good point. You shouldn't be a member anymore. Good luck to you. If they leave because now they're going to Orange Theory, that's not really acceptable. If they leave because they've actually, gotten more out of shape and gained weight and feel bad about themselves, that's unacceptable. So that's really the right benchmark. And I think, if people are leaving for reasons that are unacceptable, you need to fix those holes. I think having a fixed number, like people will say, is 10% churn good? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what your offering is. When Netflix first started, their churn was very, very low because there was nothing like it. So people came and stayed forever. Now it's much more of a commodity, and you see all this serial monogamy where people, I was with Netflix, I watched all their new content, and now I'm going through Max's content, and then after that I'm gonna go back to, I bought a new computer, so I got 6 months of Apple, so I'll cancel the other 2, and I'll come back at the end of the 6 months, and I'll make a note in my calendar. That's just a much harder environment to thrive in.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, my experience would be that the forever promise in the business to consumer models would be generally much harder to create these like long-term. You used the example of potty training. I think I wrote about one where it was somebody who wrote about unique things you can do traveling to Italy. And again, like that's an amazing service that I'm sure people love. But once you've gone, like maybe you go back 3 years later, but it's not something you probably need, to your point, this forever promise going forward. So I think that's a perfect place to end our conversation. Robbie, Kellman, Baxter, one of the world's leading experts on the membership economy. The books are called The Forever Transaction and the Membership Economy. Robbie's podcast is Subscription Stories. Robbie, thanks for doing this.